Alright, let's put these links in her real quick. Period. Black Power.
Black Power, y'all. Good morning.
Come get in this room and set that ass down. It's time for the Revolutionary Book Club. Black Power, Kimya. Black Power, Robert.
Black Power, y'all. Like and share. Like and share.
Man, if y'all could see Black Power William, Black Power Daniel, we was up in here jamming.
We was.
Black Power Karina.
Black Power, y'all.
Y'all already know what time it is. It's Sunday. It's 11 o'clock a.m. on the dot. So that means it's time for the Revolutionary Book Club with Dia and Chief Anaya. Woo, 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 woo.
What's up?
And so, as you all know right now, we are currently reading Revolutionary Suicide, which is the autobiography of the wonderful, the just magnificent comrade Huey P. Newton. And so, yeah, we are now on chapters 4 through 6. Last week, we did chapters 1 through 3.
Yep.
And all of that good stuff. And so far, the book has taken off to a really great start. Black Power, everybody. Black Power, Black Power. Please, as you come in, make sure that you share. Put hashtag shared in the comments when you shared it. And let's go ahead and get this thing cracking. I'm about to say started. Crack-a-lacking.
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 Crack-a-lacking. I like that.
All right, y'all. So if you don't have the PDF for the book, all you got to do is hit up Black Hammer on any of our social media platforms, which includes Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and just let us know that you want the PDF, and we'll get it over to you as soon as possible, okay? So thank you for sharing, Comrade Kimya. Now I'm going to turn it over to Comrade Naya, who's going to give you all your announcements. Black Power.
So, Black Power. As you know, we've been announcing the Atlanta Black Pride celebration that's coming up. That is next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Black Hammer is gonna fuck it up. Okay? We are going to be at the block party that's taking place August the 30th from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's going to be at 868 Joseph E. Boone Boulevard in Atlanta, where we'll be doing outreach. We'll also have a workshop that will be taking place at the Georgia Tech Hotel and Conference Center at 800 Spring Street, Northwest Atlanta, Georgia. You should come out to that. On Saturday, we're going to be speaking at, Black Hammer will be speaking at the LGBT Greek Meet and Greet at the Georgia Tech Conference Hotel and Conference Center. So you need to come out to that, see what we're talking about. And we'll also be doing outreach. So we're going to be all over the place. And Sunday, on the 1st of September, we're going to be with Black Hammer, and Dia is going to be performing. You don't want to miss that. And we're going to be at Kenlow Park.
I'm going to do a little nasty dance like
Yeah, we got to be a little ratchet. So, come out and see what we talking about, see what we doing. So, yeah, we're going to be there. So, you don't want to miss this. So, come out.
Yes. So, I mean, we created this segment, but I think we've been actually forgetting to do it. But it's the hashtag, what's on your bookshelf?
Yeah.
So, we want to know what you might be reading at this moment in time. You know, we want to know what's on your bookshelf and all of that good stuff. So, hashtag, what's on your bookshelf? Tell us what you're reading right now. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So, we're starting off with chapter 4. And in chapter 4, Huey P. Newton is basically speaking about the influences on his life, at that point of being an adolescent. And mainly, he speaks about his father and his brother Melvin. And, how he speaks about his father, he describes him as this extremely prideful African man, and for Huey, it's actually kind of surprising for him because his father is from Louisiana.
From the South.
From the deep South, from the trenches. And he says that it's unheard of for, any black man from the South to have such pride within themselves. And, he just speaks about, how his father never backed down from any white man at all, no matter what. Like, he speaks about an incident where his father is with his co-workers, and after work, they pull up outside in front of this white man's house, right? So they just chilling, kicking the shit, laughing, and all this other kind of stuff like that. But they don't know that it's a white woman sitting on the porch at this moment in time. So basically, of course, the white woman gets flustered and all this other kind of shit like that. And she wants them to leave. So the brother, as it's described in the chapter, comes out. I think he has like an axe. He has an axe or something like that.
Yeah, it was an axe.
So Huey's father and his co-workers, they decide, okay, let's get the fuck out of here. We're going to go ahead and go. But as they get down the road, Huey's father jumps out of the truck by himself and actually walks back to the man who is still, to this cracker who's still holding his motherfucking axe and shit like that. And basically it's like, cracker, what you planning on doing with that? Why you coming out here with an axe and all of that kind of stuff like that? Now, mind you, his father is a pastor, so he may have not said it in that fashion, but
that was the aura.
Yeah. So the white man's response is just like, well, you know how Southern women are when you just gotta show a little show of force or something like that. And I guess this is supposed to be, his type of apology to Huey's father or whatever. But he just speaks about how impactful that was for not only him but for his family, and just how this pride that was expressed by their father gave them this kind of hope, and he speaks about how was it even possible for his father to be able to make it through all of these experiences, and not be hurt or harmed or anything like that.
I don't know how many of y'all are from the South, but there's a certain attitude that it's several different expressions that's used for it, but know your place. That's kind of one of the most common ones. And so, for him to still be alive and to live through several occasions where he stood up. And then Huey actually did go into that, or why he thinks that possibly what could have helped him.
Yeah, exactly.
Being somebody who was mixed biracial and having what he said, the blood of several locals, that could have been why he was spared. But even then, you still have a certain place in,
His daddy was just like, fuck that. Yeah. And if you didn't know, Huey's father, again, as Comrade Naya said, his father was white, but his father raped an African woman. And just like Comrade Naya said, you had white people within the community who knew who Huey's father's father was, and they didn't want to, for that reason, they spared him.
Right.
And that's just one of the reasons that Comrade Huey, again, thinks that his father can get away with all of this stuff. But, he just really comments on how hopeful this made his family feel, and just the closeness that this, cultivated within the family. Like, understanding that even though we're black, that we don't have to take disrespect from no white person at all. And, he just says how influential that was for him. And, the next big influence that he speaks about is his brother Melvin, who is 4 years older than him. And I mean, even in the previous chapters, we spoke about, this ritual that Huey's family had, like when the youngest child was born, like the oldest, well, not the oldest, damn, how do I say it? Like,
You talking about of the 4? Well, no, it was 7 of them.
Yeah. So basically, it was the responsibility of the sibling who came before you to take care of you.
The next
that you would be responsible for him. And from the earlier chapters, he spoke about how Melvin had an impact on him, and in this chapter, he speaks about how Melvin, inspired his love for poetry, and even at this time, Comrade Huey was, couldn't read that well, was pretty much illiterate, but he speaks about how him and Melvin would just sit and listen to poetry and how he would retain it and just speak it, just be able to recite poetry from memory.
Yeah. That was pretty amazing. And just the fact that Comrade Huey had a huge problem reading, like several other black students in his class, and his brother helped him to overcome that. And just look how far that actually went with Huey, like in his fight, in his career as a revolutionary. Just speeches. This came out of that. All the writings of Huey Newton. Just amazing. What Melvin was able to contribute to that. Yeah,
just fantastic. And when reading this chapter and just seeing Huey speak about the influences on his life, as an adolescent, for me, a really huge influence, growing up as an adolescent was my grandmother, Dorothy Simmons, aka Peaches. And in a way, I want to say that she reminds me of Huey's father. And my grandmother, growing up, was never one to shy away from, any type of, any type of problem. She was there to face it head on. And that is something that she instilled, within her grandchildren. She would always say to me, you don't take shit lying down. You stand up and you speak, with a clear voice, and you make sure that you're heard. And, I'm sure all of us have had, that one elder within our family, whether it's your grandparents or even like your mother. Now, my mother was also a very big influence on me as well, too. And my mother is stone cold working class, and I'm talking about the type of African woman that just is ready to put you on your place like that. I'm talking about taking no types of shit, none of that, And it was just it's even now they still influence me, when we're going through different things, and sometimes you just have to think, well, what would Peaches do? What would my mama do and stuff like that? So
well, my elder that influenced that, she's deceased now, but it was actually my great grandmother. Me and my mom, we lived in Bridgeport, Alabama for the first 5 years, and her name was Willie, and she was a no-nonsense type of person, and just instilled that. Like, I think probably most of my family members today think that I'm crazy, and I get it from her. She used to carry a gun, a shotgun, and she stood up to crack us left and right. And she was just no nonsense, and she just instilled. I think that lives within me because I'm just like that. And so but other than that, lots of other influences as far as like my love for reading and things like that. It's something that we have to, because everybody is not going to be that all the way, always on 10, but it's like it comes from somewhere, and that's a passion to survive. It's a passion to thrive. It's a passion to be proud of where the fuck you came from. So yeah, that's.
Before we get to our hashtag read that back parts, I just wanted to tell a little story. So my grandmother Peaches, she used to own a diner some time ago when I was like maybe 5-6 years old. And connected to the diner was a convenience store. It was a Shell gas station. So my oldest brother at the time just so happened to be over at the store. And I'm chilling in the restaurant with my mom and my grandma because, they're the cooks. They used to cook for the diner or whatever. So all of a sudden, my oldest brother, Cornell, runs back to the diner to tell my grandmother and my mother that 2 white men next door called him a nigga. Mm-hmm. So when I tell you, my grandma and my mama came out of the kitchen with spoons, spatulas, anything that they could put their hands on it. And it just so happened that my mother's youngest brother, my Uncle Leon, was there. And we walking out of, all of us were rushing out of the diner, and here it is, you have these 2 white men who basically went into the store to get gas or something of that nature, and they're laughing on the way back to their truck. But when they see us turn that goddamn corner, them crackers could get in that truck fast enough. And I have never forgotten that incident. Like, even I can remember standing behind my grandmother's legs being like, cracker, cracker, cracker. Yeah. And, you know, we need those types of examples for our children to instill within them. You don't bow down to no white person at all. Nope. You are not subservient to no white person at all. So, yeah. Alrighty, so my hashtag read that back part is, you know, a portion of the chapter, again, where Huey is speaking about his father, and it reads, in any case, my father's pride meant that the threat of death was always there, yet it did not destroy his desire to be a man, to be free. Now I understand that because he was a man, he was also free, and he was able to pass that freedom on to his children. No matter how much society tried to steal our self-esteem, we survived on what we got from him. It was the greatest gift. It was the greatest possible gift, excuse me. All else stems from that. I just think, you know, that's a powerful statement, and then we're getting like a direct insight on, you know, which inevitably led to Huey P. Newton deciding to take, you know, this revolutionary path. You know, just that pride that he felt from his father. And I know that he mentions, you know, that his father may have been free, even though we understand that technically that's not true. Right. But, you know, even still being able to hold on to that pride, that dignity of being a black person within the Deep South, it does provide you with, you know, some sort of, you know, like personal freedom to have that confidence within yourself. So, yeah, that was my hashtag read that back part.
Well, my hashtag read that back was on page 29 when he talks about he talks about his father and just the unusualness of how proud his father was. Mm-hmm. So it just says, when I say that my father was unusual, I mean that he had a dignity and pride seldom seen in Southern black men. Although many other black men in the South had a similar strength, they never let it show around whites. Mm-hmm. And to do so was to take your life into your hands. My father never kept his strength from anybody. And then it goes on to say, traditionally, Southern black women have always had to be careful about how they bring up their sons. Through generations, black mothers have tried to curb the natural masculine aggressiveness in their young male children, lest this quality brings swift reprisal. And when it goes on into that, it just makes me think that, you know, we as women, because even as a revolutionary, and even knowing that, you know, while we're doing what we're doing, it does scare me to where, you know, if my son is anything like me, you know, what will he endure? And, you know, what could he, you know, it scares me to think what he could endure. And, you know, it's like you want to put that fearlessness in them, but you also want to protect them, and you want to tell them, you know, try to get out of the situation alive, but don't let this happen. So it is a certain thing, especially in the South. Not say that it doesn't happen anywhere else, because, you know, Huey grew up in Oakland, and there were still things he needed to be aware of even out there. But in the South, you know, it's just a way that when you see this person, you say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. You know, all those things are instilled in all of us. I don't know how that skipped me because I've never really been traditional in a lot of senses, but that is something that in the South that it tends to be what we instill in our children. We want to make sure that we know, when you're dealing with Mr. Such and Such, it's almost like that. And I hate to use it because it was something that's not our fault, but it's like that old slave mentality has been passed down from generation to generation as a means of survival and protection. So that was my read that back.
All right, Black Power. Let's see what's going on here in these comments real quick. So, let's see. Oh, we got a lot.
Y'all make sure to like and share now so we can get this political education out there.
Let's see. All right. Okay, well, we got some hashtag what's on the bookshelf. We have Comrade Kimya, who's reading the Harley Merlin series, book 9. Comrade Christopher says, I gotta get an Uber, I'll be right back. Okay, so his hashtag read that back part says,
the stupid link.
Right. Okay. Hashtag read that back. The strong sense of self-worth created a closeness among us and a sense of responsibility for each other, page 32. The desire to read in the books he read changed my life profoundly. Black Power. He also says, hashtag read that back. To be white is to have power and authority. And for a black to say anything to them is betrayal. That's page 46. By snitches get stitches comes to mind. Okay? Comrade Daniel says, my mom and my dad are both hard-nosed folks when it comes down to me and my siblings. Comrade Kimmy says, in the South, napkins want you to defer to them and be subservient.
She said napkins. Kimya, I'm gonna use that. She called them napkins. Want you to be defer to them and be subservient.
I'm like, what the hell is Kimya talking about? I got you, comrade. I got you.
Napkins.
Comrade Cameron says, my great granny beat up a white lady for calling her buckwheat or black beef.
That's what she should have done.
Period. Classic granny story. Comrade Erica says, different aspects of black manhood being played out in his father and siblings. Yes. Thank you for sharing, Comrade Gigi. We have another comment from Comrade Daniel, which reads, it's crazy King Ozymandias by Botticelli is my second favorite poem next to The Dream by Lord Byron. I was shook when I read that in Revolutionary Suicide. Black Power. Comrade Cameron says, I think my grandpa got into a fight with these white boys and hit a white lady tire jack.
They kind of fearless.
Okay. And we have Comrade Erica who says, what's on your bookshelf? Reproductive Injustice, Racism, Pregnancy, and Premature Birth by Dana Ain Davis. That sounds pretty good.
It does.
Yeah. And lastly, we have Comrade Daniel who says, this is my favorite chapter in the book, actually. Black Power.
Black Power.
Also, I forgot to mention earlier, but you see the links down here pinned up in the comments. Make sure that you support the Revolutionary Book Club by going to CashApp, donating through CashApp. That's BHBookclub. And you can also support Black Hammer Organization as an organization by going to GoFundMe.com/BlackHammerOrg. Or you can go to the blackhammer.org website and donate through there. We'll take, all of the support that we can get so we can continue the Revolutionary Book Club, so we can continue to grow and build Black Hammer and just be able to provide all of these different avenues of political education for our people. So, next we're going to get to chapter 5, which is my most favorite chapter thus far. Since we began reading, I really like this chapter. So, within this chapter, Huey speaks about the influence that the church and religion has had on him, again, as an adolescent. And again, if you guys don't know, Huey's father was a pastor. So his family was deeply, deeply, deeply involved within the church. And in this chapter, he speaks about, the different activities he participated in. He was a junior deacon. He sung in the junior choir. His parents even, got him into piano lessons, which was great to find out, because I never knew that, Comrade Huey was able to play play the piano. And I believe another large part of this chapter is Huey, just summing up, what the church means meant and what it means for, African people, right now.
Absolutely.
Just this beacon of hope, and even though we understand that church sometimes can be a form of escapism, and just like alcohol, like drug use, most of our people, we go to church to get high off of Jesus. And being that the majority of our people aren't politically educated, we have to find these avenues in order to alleviate the pressures of our colonial existence. So some might turn to the bottles, some might turn to the reefer, and some turn to the Bible. And I feel like, a lot of us, I know me and Comrade Naya, we've shared conversations previously about how, church was this safe haven for us.
Absolutely.
And, as a young little black boy growing up in the South, questioning your sexuality, being teased in school, and, dealing with the stress of teachers and stuff like that, the church was an outlet for me. And being that I could sing, I could dance, and, I was a lead singer within the choir. I was able to choreograph praise dances for, other children within the church. So it was able to give me like a sense of purpose. And you just go into this building where you have these older African women, these older African men who just embrace you and just show you so much love. And even in that time, they may have had, questions about my sexuality, and where I stood as a Christian, and what that meant for my salvation or whatever. But it was the love that you feel in a black church is just it's undeniable.
It's not like no other. Really.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes church so attractive for us. And sometimes even like recently, when you think about coming from the church and then becoming a revolutionary, you just you wonder, like, how in the hell was I able to be so oblivious to all of this shit, that even you're going through at the time. But it's you get into the mentality, as Huey P. Newton says, like, the answer that church provides is that you pray about everything. You just pray about everything, your health, finances, you're going through trouble on your job, pray about it, pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And that's what we do. And then you just keep your head down, and then you just know, Lord, I know you're going to fix it. I know it's going to get fixed. And then in the instance, the situations are fixed, but then we don't realize that we were the moving force within the whole thing to make whatever happen. And then we get caught up in thinking that, okay, well, maybe it was Jesus, maybe it was some type of miracle, when it's just you as a colonized African person, as a colonized indigenous person, doing what you have to do, to survive. And it's like, damn, bitch, I'm not about to give all the credit of my hard work to some white man up in the sky that nobody has ever even seen before, So, yeah. And then another great part in the chapter Huey P. Newton is able to sum up, just this feeling of holiness. Like when people be in the church and it's like you caught the Holy Ghost and all this other kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, you can't deny now, like when you go into church and you're surrounded by all of these African people, it's just this feeling, like this highness that you get, like this feeling of euphoria, when you're all just, you're sharing your pain, you're sharing your grief, as a community. And all of that is being exchanged, and then you just have this hope. Don't worry, brother. Don't worry, sister. In the morning, it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And it's that feeling. It's just, you think you're feeling Jesus, but it's just you're sharing that with your brothers and sisters. We're sharing that amongst each other. And Comrade Huey says that, what we're seeing in the church is something that we should be seeing out within the community.
Absolutely.
Meaning that we don't have to go to some building every Sunday between this hour and that hour to be able to come together and not, just discuss our problems, but to be able to speak to, the ways that we can solve them. And, he even raises that criticism of the church that, we can come in here and we can pray about our problems, but what's the next step? What's the next step? And, we've heard many pieces on, how people think that, well, not people think, but in many ways, if you're religious, you can see that Jesus was sort of a revolutionary.
He was.
Yeah. I mean, like, he was kicking the capitalists out of the different temples and stuff like that. And, he said that, it's easier for...
a camel to go through the eye of a needle, right?
Say it, comrade. Yeah. Say it.
He was actually an anti-capitalist.
Yes. And, this is not, a bashment to our brothers and sisters, if you attend church and stuff like that. But, all we're saying is let Jesus be that true example for you. To, and even in the Bible, it says that faith without works is dead. So if you praying about it and not taking the, the steps to overturn it, you can see how religion can be a motivator for revolutionaries. You understand what I'm saying? So, it's not to look down on it, but we also have to understand that prayer is not going to end colonization. Prayer is not going to end white power. It's not going to end, white imperialism. You can pray, that you get the strength to fight this thing, to fight these battles or whatever, but without the word,
it's not going to happen.
It's just nothing. And I wanted to read this part where he's I believe he's quoting James Baldwin, when he's speaking about these strange feelings that he's experiencing in the church. And he says, even though I did not want to spend my life there, I enjoyed a good sermon and shouting session. I even experienced sensations of holiness, of security, and of deliverance. They were strange feelings, hard to describe, but involving a tremendous emotional release. It's nothing like having a hard-ass week, then going to church, and just, even if you got to shed a little tear just to release it. And then after church, you just know you have this feeling inside, this feeling that everything is going to be okay. So though I never shouted, the emotions of others were contagious. One person stimulated another, and together we shared an ecstasy, and believed our problems would be solved, although we never knew how.
Right.
James Baldwin has described this religious experience very well in The Fire Next Time. He writes about the excitement and ecstasy that can fill a church during the service. There is no music, he says, like the music, no drama like that drama of the saints rejoicing, the sinners moaning and the tambourines racing, and all those voices coming together crying holy unto the Lord. Their pain and their joy were mine, and mine were theirs. They surrendered their pain and joy to me, I surrendered mine to them. Once you experience this feeling, it never leaves you. It never does. And to be honest, sometimes this is why sometimes I listen to gospel music, just sometimes, because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel hopeful. So, yeah.
I mean, hey, as somebody who was very deep in the church, Baptist background and everything, I remember, and that feeling is very familiar to me. I remember bringing your problems or whatever was going on to the altar, leaving it there. I remember. And so it is something that we as Black people have traditionally done. We've always had to figure things out, and we never take the credit for it, but we always figure it out, and being amongst each other and knowing that we're not by ourselves in this, and praying for each other. And then, what Huey said about what you had mentioned a second ago about, he said this was a microcosm of what ought to have been going on outside in the community. That, just imagine if all the praying and all the shouting that we did, and that, like I said, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but all that we're doing in the church or in the name of the church, if we actually did this out in the community, just imagine what we could do.
So another major part of this chapter, Huey, speaks about the makeup of the church. In the church, you see all of these African people who are going through all of these different problems, all of these different contradictions, just so in despair and so helpless. And then he speaks about, the world outside of the church. And mainly the example he uses is his second oldest brother, Walter Jr., who is known in the community as Sunny Man, as a hipster, who is this hustler. And Huey doesn't make it plain that, his brother may be dealing drugs, but we know what a hustler means. And he just speaks about, like how he didn't see his brother having these different problems that he saw, people within the church having, and how that made it so appealing to him, so much so that if someone was to ask him who he wanted to be like when he wanted to grow up, he would say his brother, Sunny Man. And he speaks about that, and just being torn between, the path that he could see clearly defined by following the church, and then also seeing, this abundant life that his brother was leading, like just so not dealing with any of the pressures that he saw, people dealing with in the church. And another major part of this chapter is he speaks about his father, and how his father was just so always preoccupied with bills. So much so that if he was to even hear the word bills, it would make him cringe inside. And, just this continuous struggle that not only Huey saw his father go through, but what we saw our parents, going through, stressing over bills, like thinking, just, yanking out your hair, like, how the hell am I going to pay this bill? How the hell am I going to pay that bill? We've all, been a witness, to this. And Huey speaks about the desire to not have to see his father go through this, the desire to not see his family have to worry about, how is this bill going to get paid? How is that bill going to get paid? And in turn, we see, like, many of our older siblings, go out into the streets, get involved in this illegal drug economy that was placed within our community by the same government that is, dragging us down with these bills and stuff like that.
Right.
And, I can, from my experience, like, I can just remember, like, when I was in college, it was hard for me to call my parents and ask for anything. And it wasn't that I held some type of resentment towards my parents, but I just understood how hard up for resources we was.
Right.
And it just made me not even want to mention anything. Like, at times I would ask my father, like, Dad, can I get some money? And it would just be this whole look of exasperation, like, damn, dear, what do you need money for? That would sometimes be the response. And then it was just this thing like, don't worry about it. I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. And I feel like, even that contributed to, the sense of independence that I had. But that just goes to show you like how locked into this struggle that, you know, African people are, to where you could be literally starving, but you know it's harder for you to ask for help than it is, you know, for you to ask for help to help you out of the situation that you might have been in. So I mean, it's just really, it's no question. It's really no question why so many brothers and so many sisters turn to, you know, becoming hustlers and doing all of these other different things to, you know, make ends meet. And Comrade Huey speaks about how his father took on 2 to 3 jobs at a time, and even his checks still didn't cover the expenses that his you know, that his family was having. Black Power, Comrade Valencia.
Black Power. Yeah, this was I mean, just the reality that had set in and everything, and for a child to really have to internalize like that at a young age, for bills to become like a profane word and everything. And I think I remember even at one point, you know, I remember feeling like I needed to wake my dad up, because if he didn't go to work, he was going to lose his job. And I was like, well, you know, and he would work swing shifts. So, you know, sometimes he was just tired working 12-hour shifts. And I remember one time I got up and I was like, Daddy, do you have to go to work? And everything. He was like, and he almost overslept, but it was just, you know, that was something, that was something that I was concerned about at that age. And, you know, just something, it's just a reality a lot of our children, African children, colonized children, have to accept much younger in life that they have to be aware of. How, you know, you might have to, how are you going to get your next meal? You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to, you know, get what you need for school? You need to do something for if you get to college, and if you're able to get to college, how are you going to get those things that you need? Just the sobering reality that just has its onset in our lives, typically much younger than it does in anybody else's life. So,
Black Power. So my hashtag read that back part comes where, you know, Huey P. Newton is basically even describing the crux that every, you know, African young man and African young woman comes to, where you have to make a decision almost, is, you know, am I going to participate, you know, in this street life, or am I going to go and get an education? And even he makes the comment that for those of us who even do go and get an education, you know, just the probability of us coming back to the hood, you know, getting back involved with the illegal drug economy and things of that nature. So it says, both avenues seem to offer a way, but I could not know which road was best. I had seen blacks take the education road and get nowhere. Many of them returned to the block, scorning their years in school and cursing the white man for holding them back. Other blacks had apparently made it on the block, but ended up broken men in prison or dead. There was no clear pattern to follow. It was hard to know what to do. This dilemma faces almost all young black men and women struggling to achieve a sense of identity in a society that denies them their basic rights. The black teenager in his most impressionable and vulnerable years looks around and sees a contradiction between society's expressed values and reality, the way things actually are. The sunny men of the community who defy authority and break the law seem to enjoy the good life and have everything in the way of material possessions. On the other hand, people who work hard and struggle and suffer much are the victims of greed and indifference. This insane reversal of values presses heavily on the black community. It's like you can see somebody working so hard, like day in and day out, and they not have shit to show for it, have to still struggle. And then you have people that you know in the community who are selling drugs, you know, doing all of these different, you know, things that, you know, inherently, you know, harm our people, but then they have such a prosperous life. And then we're faced with the question is like, damn, if I can, you mean to tell me I can do all of this hard work, I can, you know, be the most upstanding person in society, not get in trouble with the law. But here it is, I still can't provide for my family. I still cannot make a way for my family. And we still, as a people, are confronted with this question. And, you know, some of us, we get so swept up in despair because we really don't know what to do. Yeah. Do we sacrifice these values that were instilled in us by our family, by our grandparents, and things of like do the right thing? Or do I go out in these streets, sell this 9-bag because I know my daughter is screaming for food, that I have to get Pampers for my baby boy? Like, this is the questions that African people and colonized people are faced with on a 24-hour basis. And he goes on to say, this insane reversal of value. The causes originate from outside and are imposed by a system that ruthlessly seeks its own rewards, no matter what the cost, and wreck human lives. Black power.
Yeah, so this is my read that back. It kind of goes off of what you basically just said, but just kind of how it really, like, when you're in this point of adolescence where you're choosing, and that's the name of the chapter, is you're choosing kind of what path you want to go down, what you're going to do with your life, and then just, you know, let me just read what he says. But this can be profoundly disorienting to a teenager trying to understand and define himself. Like adolescents everywhere, he wants an image to model himself after. And then he becomes confused because there's such a disparity between what he is taught and what he sees. Most adolescents in black communities expect no justice from school authorities or the police. So that's something that, I mean, most of us, whether we really believe it or not, when we get to high school or when we get to a point in our lives where we realize the system doesn't work in our favor, you shouldn't expect anybody to, like school, or the police or any criminal justice system to do anything in your favor. So that's another sobering reality that you have to come to. And then further down it says, in attempting to cope, the teenager seeks some kind of protection for himself in order to survive, some way of dealing with the contradictions that surround him, the ones that you're aware of, the ones that you're becoming aware of. You're saying this, but I'm seeing this. What the fuck? And then this usually takes place in a form of resistance to all authority. So that's why you see people who decide to say, you know, start really early exhibiting the behaviors that you see in school. You know, you already feel powerless. For many adolescents, it's the only weapon they have. Most of the time, their rebellion is directed against authority outside the home, but if there is no strong family support, it can disrupt their relationships. How many times have we seen that at home? Even the closest families crumble because of outside pressure, because outside pressure is so relentless. So I mean, this is just, you know, just a reality that, you know, colonialism, even the outside forces can destroy just even our basic family structures. And I just feel like that was just really profound for us to, I mean, this is the commonality that we see in most, even if you have people who are a little more comfortable than others, you see these disruptions manifesting in your basic family structures in your home. So
Black Power. Let's jump into these comments. We have Comrade Erica who says, worked himself into poor health later in life, but it was an investment for him and a need for survival. Black Power. Black Power, Comrade Valencia. Erica says, yes, me too. So I hustled, not drugs, but side hustles to make ends meet. Black Power. Rome Foster says, the illegal drug economy that was placed in our society by our government. Right.
Yep.
Comrade Erica says, this happens throughout the generations. Kids looking up to the hustler because for them it's an escape from poverty.
Yep.
And it's a literal escape from poverty. Like their economic development within the black community, within our colonized communities, is basically non-existent. So what other forms of economic development are you going to turn to other than being in that kitchen whipping up that rock and going on that corner till about 6 o'clock in the morning just to get some resources?
And it's a contradiction, but it's just reality.
Yes, it's definitely a contradiction. Comrade Erica says again, pray on your knees, but when you get up, you better have a plan to do something. Damn right.
That's right.
Damn right. Comrade Erica says again, what people are feeling is the combined energies within and throughout the people. Yes. All right, Black Power, comrades.
One other thing I want to mention too is that 10% rule, the
What's
ties.
that? Oh, girl, please.
I remember I used to feel so guilty because, you know, when you look at if you look at your income and then you like, let me slice 10% off, how am I going to do that and still be able to pay all my bills? And I used to feel guilty because most of the time I didn't pay 10% to the church.
I feel guilty.
I thought I was the only one, but I was just like, well, God knows my heart.
Girl.
But just think about, there are people that are in the church that heavily believe in that because, I mean, the Bible does talk about giving the first 10% and everything like that, and people did it. And people would try to tell you, be like, well, yeah, but I got this money or I got this check and everything like that. And I'm like, that shit ain't never happened to me.
Yeah. And I can just, even at a young age, when they would speak to us about paying tithes and stuff like that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure. They sit in that offering plate by me, pass it right along. Just because I knew and at that moment that no matter what, Jesus loves me. I ain't worried about it.
Right.
But you know, so many of our African people, our colonized people, fall into that trap.
Absolutely.
And you know, even at a young age, my great grandmother, Mamie, when she was alive, she would send money to this white pastor that she used to watch on TV. And I couldn't articulate what was wrong about it.
Right,
but I just knew that
Yep.
something was wrong. And I can just remember the conversations of, you know, having my peaches have with my mom, like, you know, she's sending money to this pastor and, you know, she don't want to stop sending him money and stuff like that. And, you know, these are just the different pitfalls that our people can become subject to.
Yes.
When we're, you know, when we're ultimately trying to make sense of our colonized existence.
Absolutely.
And we fall into all of these different things to just give us some type of clarity. Right. But yeah. Black Power. Okay, so next, our last chapter for today is chapter 6. And in chapter 6, Huey P. Newton is speaking about his high school experience. Hold on, we got some more comments. Let's see. Roan says Tony's Martin's history provides a comprehensive history of Marcus Garvey that Newton wrote about in his dissertation. Garvey inspired Malcolm X, whose life inspired Huey P. Newton.
Absolutely.
Black Power. Okay, Erica's telling Roan to check your email. I think she sent you the PDF. Yes, I love to see that. Yes, do it.
Get it.
Conrad Valencia says, no, you're not alone. I do not give churches money. I haven't in years. Child. Cameron says, I hated going to church. Real shit. Rowan says, this is why Marcus Garvey's economic philosophy and experience should be studied. Black Power. Yes, girl, yes. And then, you know, the church motherfucking, like, I can, at one point in time, like, you know, like in the older days, you can see how beneficial the church was for the African community. But now these preachers, these sellouts,
churches,
like, and then it's tax-free. Tax-free, just sucking our people dry.
Talking about some helicopters and private jets for $65 million. Just all of that. just the way that they exploit our community and have the nerve, a lot of them have the nerve to call you when you haven't paid tithes in a certain amount of time to be like, hey, why haven't you paid? Okay, well, if you haven't paid, then you can't sit here in the congregation, you can't participate. Yeah, that shit actually happens.
I mean, it's
pure exploitation.
It's plenty of contradictions. You know, we can have a whole show about, you know, just the different contradictions that we see in the church, and then to even understand like the Catholic Church, you know, which many of, you know, the different variations of Christianity that you see stem from, you know, the Catholic Church, and at one time in feudal Europe, like, if you had a relative that died, that passed away, and you wasn't certain if they were going to go to heaven or not, you could pay the church to pray your deceased relative into heaven.
Right. Because isn't it what purgatory that they're sitting in? Like, but yeah, so that, yeah, no. Yeah.
We're going to stop right there.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so anyway, in chapter 6, Huey is speaking about his high school experience, and you know, he has already made it clear, like throughout his whole high school, throughout his education up until this point, how, you know, he has been attacked, as so many of us are, you know, as we go through this colonial school education system. And at this point, he was attending Oakland Technical High School, but he was kicked out because he was placed in a situation where the teacher, this one particular teacher and the principal, told him that for the remaining of the semester, for the remaining of the school year, he was not allowed to say anything in the classroom. And even this was punishment for an incident, I believe he said, that happened like the previous day. Like the order, is it the previous school year?
It was something like it was, I want to say it was like the previous school year, but I was, well, maybe it was something that had happened. Let's see, the principal is teacher, I could come back if I said nothing in class for the remainder of the semester. So it was something that had recently happened.
So Huey just happens to be in class, and he raises his hand to ask a question, and the motherfucking teacher snaps on him. Put your hand down. I don't want to hear nothing from you for the rest of the semester. So in turn, and rightfully so, Huey responds, how am I supposed to learn anything if I can't ask you any questions? And he gets up and he walks out of the classroom. So from at that, just like, listen, this is the reality for our African children every single day. Like, say for example, your child is put in the same predicament. How is your child supposed to come home to you and explain to you that their teacher told them that they can't speak for the rest of the semester, and that, you know, they get up and walk out of the classroom? Which technically, I mean, logically so, is the most logical thing to do. But it's because this colonial school system holds so much weight that some of our parents would rather take the side of the teacher rather than taking the side of their child. And this is the situation, this is the predicament that colonialism can put us in. It's the situation that this colonial school education system can put us in. And I just really want to stress this, because we never really understand the extent of the pressures that our children have to go through. And then to even compound that with the constant presence of the police in the classrooms, with the constant threat of the teacher just making you do some outrageous thing, or you know, just being so hostile, you know, towards you. And then in turn, your child, our children, have to bottle that experience up because they feel like they won't be understood if these things are voiced to us, you know, as African parents, as indigenous parents. And this is something that we have to always remain cognizant of. So, so he speaks about that. And so after he leaves the classroom, he ultimately transfers to Berkeley High School while living with one of his older sisters by the name of Myrtle. So when he moves there, of course he doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know any friends, you know, at this moment in time. And he speaks about his first experience being arrested by the pigs. And at this time, he's 14 years old. So he meets up with this group of girls from the school, from Berkeley High School, and they invite him to go to a party. And even though he declines, he decides to walk with them anyway, because the party is going in the direction that he's going in. So might as well just walk with these ladies. So as they're walking, they get pulled up on by another group of black boys from the same school, and they confront Huey for walking with their girlfriends. And he even knows one of the guys that's in this group by the name of Mervin. And as this confrontation is unfolding, he even says, "We know each other, we're friends." And Mervin responds, "Yeah, we may be friends in school, but outside of school ain't none of that." So they end up jumping Huey, but he does not back down, not one time. And the girls, are screaming, telling him run away. But Huey knew that he had to stand up and show that, nah, nigga, I'm not going down, even losing some teeth behind this. So after this happens, he decides to retaliate. So he goes to school with a hammer that he has and an old pistol that doesn't work because it lost the pin, the firing pin that you use to shoot the gun. So he goes to school, and I believe the first person he attacks is Mervin, but he says that even as he's hitting Mervin, with the hammer, that it doesn't even really faze him. Whatever. But he's ultimately arrested for having the gun on him. And, he's 14 at the time. So when he's arrested by the police, they put him in juvenile hall for like a month. So after he comes out of there, Berkeley won't take him back. Right. So then he's forced to transfer back to Oakland, again, where, he's still having these problems with the teachers there. But he buckles down and he ends up graduating anyway. Right. And another portion of this chapter, he speaks about how him retaliating was able to bolster his reputation as a fighter, and just the respect that he received for not taking that, taking the beating that he got by these dudes, and just standing up for himself. And he's able to get his first car, and he comments on how people talk about his driving style, like how he would drive so reckless that it would end up in fights with the people that was riding with him or whatever. And I think he talks about like how he would go down the hill like real fast, and then just immediately slam on brakes, and then they get out of the damn car and everybody bam it. And he talks about also how the trains will be coming, and how he would as the rails would come down to block it. He'd swerve on around that, and then that would end into another fight. But he just also commented, even though how him and his friends would get into fights and stuff, it just made the bonds deeper. Mm-hmm. But he also speaks about how these situations had an effect on his mentality, just thinking that, that he had some type of special touch or something like that. So much so that at one point he thought that he was invincible from death, because he would get involved in all of these different things, but he would come out unharmed. And he speaks about how it contributed to the fact that he wasn't fearful of dying. And he says what was able to bring that reality back is seeing the depths of his different comrades, and then him coming to the understanding that even though I don't fear death, I know that one day it's going to come for me. Yeah.
Well, I have a funny story. Like, I could relate to him with the crazy drive. Now, I never messed around with railroad tracks, because there was a kid that died where I'm from he was playing around railroad tracks. So just in that area, we were, I was always really conscious about that. But there was this guy that I used to talk to that denied that we had seen each other. And then we used to hang out on the square in this small town that I'm from. Everybody used to go there. And I saw him with this white girl that he was dating. And it pissed me off so bad. So I saw him and everything like that. I used to drive this little blue 1992 Geo Prism. And I waited for him. And then I pulled up beside him and everything and looked at him watching. Yes. I had my friends in the car. My wife was in the car with me at the time. We weren't together at the time. And then he said something smart, and then I backed up and I hit him.
What?
I hit him. I didn't seriously injure him, but I did back up and I hit him.
Yes.
And he said he wasn't gonna fuck with me no more because he realized I was crazy. Yeah.
Dying with the shit, God. Yes, comrade. And he was with a white girl too. He deserved to have that ass tapped.
He really did.
But it's just this one portion. It's not my hashtag read that back part, but I just wanted to read this part right here when comrade Huey's he's talking about Orpheus. Who in this I guess it's like a myth or something like that. Orpheus is someone who tries to outmaneuver death, but even just faced with the fact that human history has proven that no matter what you try to do, we are going to experience death.
Right.
And so he says, in spite of this, the only way that Orpheus can maintain his dignity is to be unafraid and attempt to outmaneuver his oppressor. This seems characteristic of human existence, for although all of us are sentenced to death each day, we try desperately to get away from it. If we cannot, we try to put it off by acting in a manner that discredits death and eliminates our fear of it. This is our victory. Yeah. Comrade Erica says Greek philosophy, yes. So my hashtag read that back part comes at the end of this chapter, which was rightfully titled High School. And Comrade Huey says, hashtag read that back. My high school diploma was a farce. When my friends and I graduated, we were ill-equipped to function in society, except at the bottom, even though the system said we were educated. Maybe they knew, and even now we can't even say maybe, because we know that they knew what they were doing, preparing us for the trash heap of society, where we would have to work long hours for low wages. They never realized, though, how much they had actually educated me by teaching me the necessity of resistance and the dignity of defiance. I was on my way to becoming a revolutionary. Black Power.
Black Power. That was my read that back too.
Okay.
It was, and with good reason, because just the things that he was already talking about at that time, everything they opposed, I supported. That's how I first became a supporter of Fidel Castro, the Cuban Revolution, the things that they, of course, are not going to teach you about in school. And if they do, they're going to make it to where these are looked at as enemies of all black people. And so, for him to already be on that path, he defended. I heard teachers criticizing Paul Robeson. I defended him and believed him. Even when I knew very little about his life, they started putting down Castro and the revolution of the Cuban people. I knew it must be good. So he even caught on to the fact that if they're promoting it, this is something I should probably support.
Right.
That's a very smart individual to already be on the path in high school. These are things that I might not have even realized until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So, that was definitely profound to me for him to already be on that path. And yes, he was definitely on the path to becoming a revolutionary. I mean, obviously,
one of the greatest that we would ever have the honor of knowing about.
Absolutely.
So let's see. We have Comrade Erica who says he knew that if white people were against it, it had to be no good for us.
Absolutely.
Comrade Roan says the high school education, like a lot of ours, was conservative. Let's see what else. Erica says, see, that was done by design. Still is. Yes, it most definitely is. Comrade Valencia says, yes, sis. Girl, now you about that life. Now you about that life. Now you about that life. Erica says, ma'am, you was wild, but I respect it. Girl, please, let me would have rolled up on somebody I was supposed to be seeing and they out with, and not only just with another person. Not just another person. But you out here with a toilet seat individual? What? What? See, Naya might have tapped him, but I had to. You was going to sprain an ankle. You might got out of there with a broke collarbone. With the, I wasn't going to be satisfied until I seen your ass flying over my windshield. Okay?
I wanted to. I really wanted to.
Listen. Comrade Roan says, Huey said, okay, hold on, let's see. Come on now. This thing be working me, y'all. Huey said his friends from high school never realized how much they had actually educated me by teaching the necessity of resistance and the dignity of defiance. Mm-hmm. Yes. Erica says, Huey was really doing well for himself, better than some brothers do now in terms of getting things like a car. Yes, they used to, he said they call it the gray roach.
The gray roach, yeah.
The car that he had. Valencia says, hold on. A whole scam. I do not fool around in these church houses. I'm the person in my family who only goes to church when there's a funeral.
Well.
Girl, Erica says, yeah, he had to go back in because they straight up jumped him. That's some punk shit.
Yep.
Comrade Cameron says Huey was with the shit. Period.
And the fact that he had already also caught on to the fact that you don't talk to, he wanted to handle the situation himself. He wasn't gonna snitch. He wasn't gonna just like Christopher said, he wasn't gonna snitch. He wasn't gonna talk to the police. He was just gonna go back in and handle it himself. And leave the police out of it. Yeah, so, you know.
Alrighty, comrades. So, again, if you do not have the free PDF of Revolutionary Suicide, please hit us up on all of our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Hit us up. We can get you over the free PDF so you can follow along. Next week, we got chapters 7 through 10. So, you definitely want to be able to keep up with the discussion. In this book, it has like a lot of chapters.
It does.
So, over the course, as time progresses, we may begin to include more than 3 chapters during the session, but we definitely let you know ahead of time just so we're all prepared. So, but just be ready for chapters 7 through 10 next Sunday. Don't forget. And now, Comrade Naya, who is Chief of Membership, has something she would like to say.
So, if you enjoyed this wonderful review we've been doing on this wonderful book, I don't see how you could not want to join this organization. I don't see how you wouldn't want to be a part of something as revolutionary as Black Hammer and what we're trying to do to be a self-determining organization that just liberates our people. And so we need people as a part of this organization. We need people to help promote the book club, to be a part of the book club. We need people to, all the other committees that we have, we need people. We need people to do that. There's so much that this organization is doing right now that requires, bodies. It requires skills. It requires work. It requires people doing the work. And you could be a part of this organization for as little as $5 a month. And You know, $5 a month. You can be a part of this organization today. You can go to blackhammer.org and hit the join. You can let us know. If I see any fists right now, if you are not a member yet, put a fist in the comment section. I will personally contact you myself, and I will walk you through the process of how to sign up. But again, you know, what we're doing with this book club alone, like, but everything else, I don't see how you wouldn't want to join. If you support what Huey did and everything that we're reading about, how his path to becoming a revolutionary, the things that he believed in, why would you not want to be a part of an organization that is about the freedom and self-determining facilitation of African people and colonized people everywhere? So just go ahead and join. $5 a month. Just do it.
And even if you don't want to be, you know, a full member, you can donate on a monthly basis. Become a sustainer of the organization. Again,
absolutely,
as low as $5. And even though you may not be able to participate fully in the work, your resources are going towards supporting this revolutionary organization that is working each and every single day to build for the revolution, to build towards the liberation of African and colonized people all over the world. So any way you look at it, you can still participate in the revolution. Okay? So, my beautiful black people, meet me and Conrad Naya back here again on Sunday. Remember, we're doing chapters 7 through 10.
Will we be here because of Black Pride? Might be the Sunday after next.
Oh, girl, you're right. But we'll put out an official statement to let y'all know how we're going to be moving about for next Sunday. Dang, I didn't even think about that. Hold on, wait. We can still do it because the engagement isn't until later on that afternoon.
We might just be, okay.
But we gonna let y'all know. We're gonna let y'all know how we moving or whatever. But anyway, Black Power. Remember, always remember, keep your head high, but your fist higher. Black Power.
Black Power.